Hi, Stefan, the BMW DIY guy. I'm really excited for my project today. We're going to be installing the Wagner high-flow catted downpipe into my BMW F32 435. This is not a hard project to do. When you take a look at things like this, it may seem a little daunting, but it doesn't take a lot of time. It doesn't take any real super special tools other than one O2 sensor socket, which will be listed in the description below. So with some basic tools, one socket and some time, and you can do this work yourself. I cannot wait to make this difference in my car. The factory cat and downpipe, it's not intended for high performance. It's intended to kind of be that middle place between performance and sound and your emission standards as well. Now, you always can go for a straight downpipe with no cats. I decided not to do that myself. Number one, straight cats are limited to, or a straight downpipe without cats is limited to off-road only and can create you some problems. But the other thing is, I can't get away from the fact that they always talk about it, you're gonna have some smell. And that's not something I wanna put up with. So you get a great product like the Wagner, where they say that you've got 97% of the exhaust flow in through their high performance cat that you would have otherwise in a straight downpipe. So to me, that's absolutely worth it. You get all of the benefit, you get all of that improvement with really almost no negatives. So before we get started out to the garage, please click subscribe, click the little alarm bell so you get notifications of my upcoming projects. I have a ton in the pipeline just like this that I cannot wait to share with you. So let's get out to the car, let's get this started. This isn't hard, and I'll walk you through the whole process. Okay, so we're out in the garage. Now, you actually want to start at the top of the motor in this case. Car's up a little bit high because I've got it up on the quick jacks right now. I also have my Ryobi light hooked over the nose of my hood. Make sure to check the comments on the video. It's one of the coolest things being able to hook this Ryobi over your hood line, and it makes working in the motor super, super simple. So if you haven't had your cover off before, you just pick it up and lift, and there's posts. That is really stiff for me right this morning. So you take that off, set it aside. The other thing you want to do is you can see the foam back here. Now, mine was torn. There's lots of little parts that this sticks up in and over when you pull it out. Now mine is torn, so you're going to see it come out in two pieces. I'll get around to replacing it one of these days. So you'll want to take this and pull it out. Now if you just grab this and pull, it will tear. I also know a lot of folks who take this out and leave it out. But I figure it's there for a reason. If you look at the descriptions, they call it like sound baffling or heat insulation. I figure it's there for a reason, so I always put it back. And there's lots of little parts it can catch on when it comes out, so if you just grab it and pull, you are going to tear it, which is why so often you see it torn. So we want to get to these two connectors right here. You've got a black one in front and a gray one. You just take this and just pry it up and out of the clip. And there's a little pressure right here, and these are for your O2 sensors. Press on the tab, pull the cable out, reach here, pry up, press on the tab, pull the cable out. Now, the one thing I want to point out, when you're putting these back up to help understand which one's which. So the black goes in front, gray goes in the back. The black one has 5 pins, the gray one has 4 and is missing the middle pin. So when you put these back, you can tell which one's of this. So also, if you look, it's blue and blue on the inside, black and black on the inside. So you can tell which ones are which. Black goes in front, gray goes in back. So you can just take these cables and just set them aside. You can also take your 2 plugs and just feed them down. Now, the one thing that's going to be a little hard to show is these cables are connected to a series of clips down the body right here, and it's really hard to actually show. So let me come around. And as you look in here, you'll see, and you'll look down, and you'll see where these cables, where they come up, actually clip into a series of little metal and plastic clips, and you're just going to walk them out of those clips and down. So really easy to see. Your cables will drop down and hang. These are your 2 connections for your O2 sensors that are in your downpipe. So with those loose, that's all we need to do on the top of the motor, and we can get underneath the car. Now, like I said, I've got my car up on my quick jacks, which is absolutely fantastic. One of the very first things we're going to do is we're going to pull the belly pan. So we're going to drop off the belly pan. There are about 12 or 15 8mm bolts. They keep your belly pan in place. And so we're going to take all of those off and drop off the belly pan. It's going to be a little hard to show. I will do so you can see it, but all it is just a whole bunch of little bolts. Now, the one other thing I do want to mention, if you've never had your belly pan off before, you probably have a ton of debris in there. So anytime that we're going to be doing this work underneath the downpipe and underneath the belly pan, have at least goggles on, if not a full face visor, or you're going to get stuff in your eyes, you're going to get debris in your face. Try to cut down and avoid that. All right, so let's get underneath the car. Okay, so here we are under the car. It's a little tight. It's a little tighter than it would be if you're on a full lift, but these quick jacks are going to be awesome to work with. And I'm looking from the rear of the car towards the motor. This is the rear V-band on the downpipe. And as I scroll forward or roll forward a little bit, you can see all the way up there. You will see, and I've got some pretty good backlight right at the moment, you can see the top V-band clamp. So we're going to get the top first because that's the hardest one to get to. And you can see the belly pan is still on. So we're going to pull all these 8mm bolts all the way across to drop the belly pan. You could potentially do it without taking off the belly pan. We could also take off the passenger side front wheel and come through the sidewall as well. I'm not going to do that in this case, and you could potentially do this without taking off the belly pan, but I'm going to do so to give myself a little bit more room to maneuver and be able to get at the bolt at the top V-band on the downpipe a little easier. Lastly, you can also see when we look at this side, as we come across, we can see right here, that's the mounting bracket right there, right there. You can see the bolt where the downpipe is connected, and there's a bolt up above it too. So these are all, should all be 13mm. I'm going to confirm as we go, but the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 8mm and take my belly pan off. So I'm going to do that first. Like I said, you're probably going to get a lot of dirt and debris if you've never taken it off before. So I'm going to take that off first. Make sure not to get stuff in your eyes. Okay, so I want to show you what these V-band clamps look like off the car. These are new ones. The recommendations are to replace them. I ordered these before really getting a good look at my V-bands, which could probably be reused. They're not rusty, they don't look bad, but you may be in for a surprise when you look underneath the car and you find that these can be really, really rusty. And I've heard examples of where these bolts are so rusty that they break when you try to take them off. So I preemptively ordered a top and bottom V-band. They're different sizes. They're different sizes depending on model and year too. So double check on which ones are correct. If you look in the description, you'll see the correct part numbers for my 2014 N55 motor. So what you see at the top of the downpipe is this V-band at the top. This is a 13mm bolt. It's a little hard to see in place right now, but this is what it looks like at the top. And at the bottom, this is that one that we could see here from the bottom in this orientation. And that is actually a 16. So it's a 13 at the top and a 16 at the bottom. Now also when we look at this V-band, and I'm going to mention this again when I replace this, if you look at the lower V-band, it looks different on the inside. One side is mostly smooth, and one side has a series of little clip flanges. The clip flanges go on the downpipe side, the smooth side goes on your mid-pipe side. Now the other V-band is not specific, it doesn't matter which direction you go, you just want to get it into a good orientation when you're looking to install it. So I'm going to reach up and take this top one off first. Now I will crawl back underneath the car and show you with a flashlight so you can see where this bolt sits. And you can see it's a little hard to get to, but it's not bad. Again, some people come in through the side of the wheel well, which I can see why you would do that. I don't want to bend my heat shielding back, so I'm going to get at it from underneath. So let me grab a flashlight so I can exactly point out where this is on the car, but I wanted to show this to you first. So go with the recommendations of buying these just in case, because the last thing you want to do is get this all done, get underneath your car and find that these are so ruined that you can't replace them, or you're trying to take one off and it breaks. Then you're going to have to try to locate one in an emergency, which is going to be a problem. So let me get a flashlight and I'll show you on the car. Okay, so here's the angle looking. We're underneath the car, the belly pan is off, and you can see highlighted there in the light, that is the bolt of the top V-band, and we're going to take that off first because the bottom one is easy to get to. So we're going to take that one off, So we can take the most challenging one first. The nut is welded in place, so you only have to get on one side. So I'm going to get my 13mm socket up in there, probably use a short extension, and then just back that bolt out and, and loosen up that V-band. All right, so I'm going to loosen that, and then I'll loosen the bottom one, and I'll show you next steps. Okay, so both my V-bands are off, both upper and lower, and I am really glad that I bought spares. So the lower I've spread apart and slid back a little bit, as you can see right here. Now, those little metal flanges that are on the inside that I showed you with the new one look like they're permanently now adhered or rusted to the downpipe. So I would have needed to replace this V-band anyway. Also, the little locking nut that should be connected broke off when I spread the V-band. So I'm glad I did. I've read a lot of places of folks who have an experience where they don't need to replace their V-bands and it would be extra to buy them. In my case, I'm really glad I did, because I would be in this place where I would have spread this V-band, it broke, and I'd be like, now what? So I'd be scrambling to try to find one while trying to do this work. So worst case scenario, order them and then return them if you don't need them. The upper is off as well. Let me see if I can scroll to a place where you can get a good look at it. You can see, let me adjust my light a little bit. The upper V-band is right here. My hand is on it right here. Come on, camera, focus. Sorry guys, a little out of focus there. Focus, focus, focus. There we go. So the upper V-band, now it's got that expansion at the top, which I mentioned, so I was able to get a screwdriver in and spread it apart. So it's good to go. I think we're a little out of focus, my apologies. So now you've got two 13mm, you've got a 13mm bolt right here. Yeah, a 13mm bolt and a 13mm nut for the top of the bracket for the downpipe. The other thing I'm going to look at doing as well, and I'll roll back down the car to show you, we're very likely going to need to sag the exhaust mood pipe a little bit to give it enough room to get the downpipe out. So I'll show you where those are, and they're reverse torques. So let me roll down and show you those. All right, so the downpipe's out. I want to show you what I did, and it was even easier than I thought. So here's the bracket your downpipe is mounted to. You've got a 13mm bolt right there, and you've got the 13mm nut up at the top. Now, the nut, I'm not going to move around and try to show where that came from, just because my camera doesn't want to focus when I move around that much, and I don't want it to go all fuzzy on you. Now, you can see the back of your turbo right here, and I've taken the V-clamp, the old V-clamp, off from the bracket there, and it's good to go. Now, my mid-body pipe right here has this flex. So I could push this up out of the way to pull the downpipe out. The one other thing I did is there's this aluminum body piece right here that helps hold your belly pan in place. There was one bolt right here. So one comes out when you take your belly pan off. There's another one right here holding it in place. So I took that out and could slide and push that out of the way, flex this pipe up, and then the downpipe came straight out. And I'll show you what it looks like, especially in comparison to the new one. And I'll show you how to take the O2 sensors out. But really simple, just feeding it down. And I've really heard some horror stories of how hard it is to Tetris it down out of that space. And it came right out super, super easy. So the top V-band looks in fairly good shape, but I'm glad that I'm going to replace that as well. I've got that top gasket, which I'll show, because I'm going to replace that too, just to be thorough. Last thing I want to do is have a leak in the system after putting in all this hard work. So I'm going to roll out from underneath the car. I'll show you the old downpipe and the new, and we're making great progress. All right, so obviously I haven't taken my O2 sensors out yet, but here are the two side by side. So the OEM with my O2 sensors still installed. Just tip this up. You can take a look at the cat density right there. So you can see a significant difference in the density between that and the Wagner here. And I want to be really careful I don't bang my O2 sensors up. But again, you look there and the difference is significant. So when you're looking at a good high flow catted downpipe, I mean, they'll advertise 95, 97% the airflow or the exhaust flow, excuse me, of being a straight pipe. So I decided to go with catted to potentially cut down on smell and getting the cell error. So you can really see the difference here. So now I'm going to transfer the O2 sensors. I'll show you how to do that. I have a special O2 sensor socket, and I'll show you how to take that off. Okay, so I've already transferred one of the two O2 sensors, and here is your O2 sensor socket. It's a 22mm. It's got a gap in it, and here where you can put a breaker bar or your wrench, and it's going to fit over the cable like this, as you can see. So I'm trying to do this with one hand, so my apologies. So it's going to fit over the cable and down onto it just like that. And you can see where it fits around the cable. So it's definitely worth it to investigate to get this socket. I wouldn't do it otherwise. In theory, you could do it with a 22 millimeter. I wouldn't do it. I'd use the correct tool. It's worth the investment of time. So, and in this case, again, make sure that you're swapping the correct cables for the correct cables. So I've got the gray in the back. The gray was in the back, black in the front. Black will go to the front, and then tighten down accordingly. So I'm going to take this front one out, and then we'll look to get this mounted into place. All right, so the O2 sensors are transferred, and again, make sure you transfer them in the correct position. If you just transfer them one at a time, you should be fine. The other thing you're going to want to look for, if you notice that on the brackets for the OEM, there is a welded-in post and a welded-in nut. Well, you don't have those with the Wagner. What you have is just the bare flanges. So make sure that you find these in the box. I'll be perfectly honest, I just panicked. I couldn't find these parts, and down underneath the packing foam, this little bag of the mounting bolts had wandered off on me. So I found those. Now the other thing I wanted to show you, I'll move back up here. I'm going to show you a little trick, because what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to get those O2 sensor cables back up. So I took a little bit of string, tied a loop in it, just have it looped here at the top, took a roll of electrical tape and tied it on the other end and just swung it down to come out the bottom. So when I crawl back underneath and I'm going to start to fit the downpipe in, I can put the plugs for my O2 sensors and tie it to that string and use the string just to pull them back up to place and when we connect them here on the top. So that should be good to go. All right, so everything's transferred. Now what we need to do is get back underneath and start to fit the downpipe into place. Now I'll show this when I get there, but I'm going to mention it a couple of times. There's a gasket. So just like I replaced the V-bands, I replaced a gasket as well. I'll show you where that goes. And then we start to fit this in, fit the downpipe into place. All right, so here's the back of the turbo right here. I've already fit the V-band. I spread it out and fit it around the turbo here. Now, what you can see here, right in the groove, there is a grooved channel with this silver gasket in it. Now, you may need to replace it, you may not. The official BMW recommendations are to replace it, so I decided to do so. So I used an angle pick tool, just very carefully picked out the old one and then fit a new one into that groove, so that's good to go. Now, as you can see my string here for the O2 sensor cables, and I'm going to tie the cable plugs carefully to this string so I can pull them back up. But now it's just going to be a matter of fitting this up into place. Now the other thing that I did, and I'm going to do my best to show it here, see if I can point with my hand first. So right here, you'll see, and forgive it being kind of upside down, you notice that this has a notch in it, right? So this is not a closed loop. So the bracket on the top of the Wagner, the bolt and nut that was included, I've put the bolt and nut already through the bracket and then loosely screwed on, because I'll be able to hang it on this bracket right here. The lower one is a closed loop right here, but the upper one you can hang. So this is going to be able to give me a little bit of extra weight to take the weight off of the downpipe as I'm trying to fit it into place. So I'm going to put it up on this bracket and hang it, and then work my hands back up to fit this in, to get it into the collar, and then tighten this bolt down. Now, I'm not going to tighten this bolt down fully. It's going to be finger tight at first to make sure that it's all in nice and straight. And I wish there was a great secret to this. There really isn't. It's just a matter of just working the downpipe up into place, getting the V-clamp over the top of it, and making sure that it's sealed, or it's set well and evenly, because the last thing you'd want to do is have a leak right here. So that open flange at the top of that bracket will help you hold it into place as you do this. So fit it up into place and get the V-band around the top of your downpipe, and then tighten that 13 millimeter down just enough to keep it on so it doesn't slip. And then you can fit the bottom as well and make sure that everything is nice and sealed well and doesn't leak. Okay, so the downpipe is in the top V-band. I really kind of got it on first attempt, which was kind of nice. The V-band was sitting on the turbo side. I fit the downpipe up to it and kind of fit it around it, and it really went right into place. I squeezed the band down with my fingers and then I was able to screw that bolt into the fixed nut and secured it down, made sure it was nice and flush, using the top bolt that I showed you in the brace to hook into that C part of that connection plate. Really helped hang it in place and take a bunch of the weight to make it easier for me to put it on. So, and I've actually put the bottom post in now too, just to help hold it in place. The bolt's loose. Now, the other thing that I've done is the lower V-band is in place, and it's not tightened down yet. So again, remember, you've got those flanges on the downpipe side, the flanges, so I pushed the lower V-band into place and then fit my mid-pipe into the V-band. Now, it's gapping a little bit. It's not secure down. All you need to do is tighten it down significantly, and as it tightens down, make sure that it's straight. Since the mid-pipe has this flex joint in it, it makes it really easy to do. So I'm going to tighten that down, and then I will make sure that my brackets are set. Now, the nut, I need to grab a socket for the nut for those two nuts and bolts to hold it to the hold the downpipe in place. I don't have a size on those right away. I'll have those for you in a moment. Also, the bolts they set also have an Allen head on it, so I'll tell you the Allen head size and socket size here in a second as soon as I grab my tools. So, but the upper V-band is on, the lower V-band is on. I haven't pulled my sensor plugs up yet, but that's okay. That's one of the last things I'm going to do. But I'm going to get the upper and lower seated, and then I'll tighten the downpipe to the bracket, and I'll tell you what size those are in just a second. All right, so my two bracket bolts are tight. I'll show them in just a moment. The hex head is an H6, so a 6 hex, and then it is a 13 millimeter nut. So really easy and simple tools to get to. You can see my upper V-band is tight and secure all the way down. Like I said, I have mine in a slightly different position because I found that it was easier to get my socket to. So I'm back up here, take a look at my lower. You can see the lower is now tight. That is a 16 millimeter, and I used a ratcheting wrench on that because I found that the ratcheting wrench got to it a lot easier. Plus, I don't have a socket that is that deep. So, and then my brackets here, you can see the brackets are all set up and done. So they're set. That H6 and 13 millimeter, and the one at the top, which is really hard to show. It's easy to see, but hard to show because the camera doesn't want to focus there. So. All right, so it's all good to go. So all we need to do now, and everything is secure and tight, all we need to do now is return to the top of the car again, pull our O2 sensor cables back up and plug them in, and I'll show you that. Put our covers back on, and then we can take the car. So quick correction. Now, obviously, we still got to put the belly pan on, right? And there's this aluminum brace that went across that we pulled the 8 millimeter out of, and then the belly pan goes over the top of this. So obviously, we got to put that back on. We're not ready to take the car down yet. So go ahead and put your belly pan back on. I find that it's easiest to obviously put this one back in where it goes in right here. I find it's easiest to put the 4 center 8 millimeter bolts for the belly pan in first, because that helps hold it up. So instead of trying to hold it up with one hand and go around the perimeter, if you do the center first, then it'll hold itself up, and then you can do all the way around the perimeter and put the half a dozen or a dozen 8 millimeters back in. So I'm going to put my belly pan back on after I put in the 8 millimeter for this little aluminum brace here. And it's also a great opportunity to shake out your belly pan, make sure you've got any gravel or any mess, that you get that all shaken out and cleaned up. So I'm going to put the belly pan on, then we're going to plug the O2 sensors back in. Okay, so we're back at the top of the motor. I've got my string that I've tied loosely, like I said, around my O2 sensor cables. Now, with the Wagner downpipe, the rear sensors, I just gently undo my string here, because the last thing I'd want to do is drop them at this point, which, I could find them. That'd be a hassle. So gently untie my cables. The Wagner rear sensor, the rear O2 sensor, is a little bit further back positionally than the OEM, which means that the cable is just a hair short. Now, it'll reach, it's just really tight. So as you look at this here, and we pull our 2 other cables back up, and again, we match blue to blue, as you can see, we are none too long right here. So it is really, really tight. So make sure that you've got good cable length, and you've got it up as far as it'll go, and snap this in. Let me reverse it, sorry. snap that into place, and then you can snap it into the clip right here in the back, just like that. So it's tight, but it makes it. So don't worry about it, it'll make it. So then, black to black, and they only go in one direction, which is nice, as you see me try the wrong direction. They only go one direction. Clip it right into place, just like that. So now, our O2 sensors are plugged back in. You want to stuff your foam back into place. That can be a little bit of a challenge. It's going to be a matter of taking it and fitting it back in over these posts. Be careful not to tear it. I think it's worth it to take the time. So just as a quick pointer here, you'll see a metal plate right here. This guy really wants to hang up that foam, that insulation foam. So really compress it to fit over the top of this, and then this post needs to come through the foam, this post comes through the foam, this post comes through the foam, because that's for your engine cover that goes on. So fit that back in, fit your engine cover back on, snap it back down into place. But other than that, all the technical stuff is done. You are done at this point. I'm going to take my car down off the quick jacks, I'll fire it up, make sure that it runs and runs well, and I'll show you that when it happens. All right, all done and in from the garage. I took the car out for a test drive, put all my tools away. I'm floored, already just floored at the difference that this makes. First of all, the sound. The very first startup, I got pops and crackles on startup. I've never had that before. I am just amazed by that. And so not only am I looking at a significant sound difference, and it's throughout the entire range, when the car started, up through driving and idling, and up through a pretty energetic drive, just to see the differences, if I could feel the differences, and I already can. So not only do you have all the sound, but then I can already feel the performance differences. I'm just blown away by how improved this piece is. This really is a level up for my car, and it will be for you too. And this is all before, and I'm still going to coordinate with Active Auto Work and get an updated tune to reflect that I've changed from the OEM cats to high performance cats in my downpipe. So this is all before the tune, the updated tune as well. So I cannot recommend this more highly for your car. As you can see, it's really not that hard. You just take your time, you do these simple steps in your one special tool. You can walk through this really without any problem, do this work yourself. I recommend having good tools and a good setup. Things like the Quick Jack make this so much easier and so much faster. So definitely take a look at that as you look at building out your home garage. I want to thank Extreme Powerhouse for my partner on this project. They are fantastic and should be one of the first places you go as you look for performance upgrades and styling and everything else that goes into our amazing cars. Definitely check them out. I want to thank you for your time, and I look forward to seeing you on my next project.